Muay Thai clinch. When I get needed a Muay Thai clinch. Got expertise in the Muay Thai. Yeah, better get sweep in the Muay Thai. Needed a clinch. I'll hold it.
Ron, hope you're doing well, man.
Hey, Taylor, how are you, sir?
I'm excellent. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well, man. I just can't believe I'm getting on another plane tomorrow, but it's all good. That's what we do.
It's for me, it's super exciting to talk with someone that's in this hemisphere of the fight game. Obviously, super busy schedule when you're covering these events across North America. And so thank you for your time, first of all. I know what it's like
Of
to hop on
course.
these planes and cover this sport. I do some local coverage, done some work with the WBC.
Heck yeah.
So those sleepless nights, those long times in the airport away from the family is it's long, but it's worth it when you're working with fighters at this caliber.
I totally agree. It's been a long, crazy trip, that's for sure. I've been with LFA from day one in 2017. And, it's just amazing to see how much this organization has grown and the caliber of fighters that not only we have put into the UFC and Bellator back in the day, but also the next generation that continues to come up. And that's what's pretty exciting about being in this organization for sure.
Yeah, man. I just spoke with Shannon Clark today. We didn't do an interview. I want to get her on soon, but just sent a few messages, and
Nice.
it's very exciting to see, Alini Pereira this past weekend get that win and come for this title. She's gonna want that title from Shannon. So to see that caliber of, you have Alex Pierre's, that whole team against someone from Canada like this, it brings up that matchmaking. We had our amateur world games at the WBC for Muay Thai this year, and we
Hmm.
had one of the best gyms in England, in the world, Bad Company Gym. Liam Harrison is a Muay Thai fighter. It was
Okay.
our local Winnipeg guy up against, the next world's top talent. So when you're getting these matchups in these different organizations, it's not only good for obviously the organization promotion, but the gyms themselves also, they get status, they get more output into the world when they're having these matchups. It's beautiful.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, just mentioning Shannon Clark, what a performance she had back a couple weeks ago, not defending her title and then going down to hostile territory in Brazil and being able to really dominate a very tough and at the point undefeated Bia Consuli, who had never lost. And here
Mhm.
comes Shannon Clark, who is one of my favorite interviews. She's just such a unique individual that is still it has her full-time job in the finance world and just loves to fight. And she looked amazing. You mentioned Taylor. You mentioned Eleni Pereira just last week. Of course, we're in Foxwoods for LFA number 222. And there's Eleni Pereira, 1-2, walking to the LFA octagon. And she's got, of course, the light heavyweight champion of the UFC, her brother Alex, in her corner, the great and former UFC champion Glover Teixeira in the corner. And you might as well just throw in Plino Cruz as, coach of the year, too, because that's not intimidating enough for her opponent to see those guys come in. But, what a crazy it just really shows the caliber of athletes that are coming into the LFA at this time and always have. That's been from day one. Two things: you get the best fighters outside of the UFC to come to the LFA, and then two, when they win their titles, or if the UFC or Bellator come calling, we are more than happy to say goodbye and let them move on because that's what makes us the true developmental league to the UFC, letting champions go on. Listen, we know the dream is, yes, to capture a title in the LFA, but it's also, come on, to get to the UFC and to get to that next level. And that's why we have been a success. And that's why we are not selling. And that's why we're not going anywhere, because we've embraced that feeder league mentality to the UFC and we work very well with them. And I think that's a big key. I've seen Listen, bud, I've been in this industry a long time. WEC beginning in 2004. I've seen them get bought up. I was a part of the IFL in the day. I've seen what happened to them and organizations that try to take on the machine. It's
HD
like taking,
fights. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like taking on the NFL here
yeah.
in the States. It might work for a little while, but longevity wise, it's not going to happen. So that's what's made really the LFA the success it is.
And it's exciting too because you guys are that staple. It's basically if you're an exciting fighter, you have a brand, you're putting yourself forward, you win that title. I had Ed on a little while ago, and I was lucky enough to meet him in LA there. He came to Anderson Silva's son Gabriel, his boxing match there on Tom Loeffler's show. I was down there
Nice.
covering that, and he said, "Look, no offense, you win this title, I don't want to see you here again." That's and I love that mentality, man. It's look, we are the D1. We are the D1 NCAA of
Well said.
MMA for across the globe, bar none, compared to any other organization. And that's what's put it on the map too. I tell my friends, listen, where do you think Pereira came from? Where do you think Kevin Holland came from? Where do you think Valentina Shevchenko came from? Yada, 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 yada. Where are all of these killers coming from? All of a sudden, boom, look at Ethan Ewing this past weekend, man. That's one of the most compelling stories in
Incredible.
MMA recently,
Incredible.
Disgusting
Yes.
head kick at LFA 200.
Oh,
Dude,
yep.
then comes up on 2-day notice to Malcolm Wellmaker, who's been a destructor in the UFC, who's been on everyone's top priority list at 145.
Totally.
Especially with Ilya gone, it opens it up completely. Now you have Ewing, who's in that talk of, give him anyone in the top 10. He just did Malcolm like that. It's disgusting.
It's
Um,
incredible. And he
oh,
became, Taylor, he was our 30th athlete just this year to move on to the UFC.
yeah,
30 athletes,
that's
which is
massive.
just insane. And right, even more important, I go back to when I was calling fights with Pat Miletich, who has been, at the peak of the sport. And what Pat would always say was, yeah, we want to get you guys there, but we want you to stay there.
Yeah,
You can easily go up there and suddenly you're 0-2 and they're pushing you out the door because the next big thing is coming in. That's not the goal. It's the longevity, it's to get there and to stay. And Ethan Ewing, that was incredible. As you said, man, comes in short notice, our 30th fighter of the year, and he puts on a show. He was ready, he was hungry, and he just showed what people are doing. I'm just thinking of a couple other people. Bia Mosqueda, the BJJ world champion. Her debut was amazing.
hmm,
And guys who just keep getting it done. We got Denzel Freeman, our heavyweight champion, is making his heavyweight and UFC debut this weekend. So there's a lot of guys and girls who really cut their teeth with us. And, there are many that, I think back to Mackenzie Dern. She just became our fourth current UFC champion that began their career in the LFA. So it's Mackenzie Dern, Alexandra Pantoja, of course, Alex Pereira, and Valentina Shevchenko.
yeah, yeah.
All started with us. And I remember Mackenzie Dern, like, her first fight, she had to get carried off the scale. She didn't make weight, and she gets the win in that debut. And we're talking to her afterwards, and we thought, well, is this one and done? And I asked her that, and she said, absolutely not. As you can see, I am not ready for that next level yet. And she would have been fine. Of
Yeah.
course, she would have been fine. She was being very humble, but she wanted a couple of fights with this organization, not only to go through the weight cut, but to go through everything that this organization tries to do for their fighters,
Hmm.
prepare them for sitting down with John Anik in
Yeah.
DC and doing the interviews with me and Gilbert Melendez, Alan Joban, whoever it is, Michael Chiesa, anyone, get them ready from as soon as you sign with the LFA, you're going to go through the process all the way to your post-fight interview, and it's going to resemble pretty much the exact same thing you're doing with the UFC. So
Even the walkouts. Ed was saying this, sometimes that stage hits, those lights hit, and the fighter freezes up.
spot on. Absolutely. It's suddenly the big bright lights and the big stage. You see it happen all the time. Even with fighters that, either, have crazy wrestling pedigrees, the Mitch McKees who, University of Minnesota and have been there forever, and guys like that have been on the big stage of college athletics. It's still a different deal when suddenly that cage door slams shut and you're in the octagon and there's someone across the way that wants to knock your head off. So that's it just makes this really still enjoyable for me, Taylor, is just the fact that you see these young, hungry kids or people like, hey, we just had, Gable Steveson.
Yeah.
He made
Boom.
his debut in the LFA. He took on he looked the part and he did everything that he was supposed to do, but he also was humble enough to know that, this could turn in a moment. And he fought, a big dude in Braden Peterson. He got the win, TKO, round 1 minute and 38 seconds. But it was the whole process that he really said he needed. He needed to see how he, made weight, how you go through the interviews, what I do on fight day, how do I approach fight night, all the way through his post-fight interviews. So there's another dude. I can't wait to see what happens with him. It's gonna be fun to watch.
And you knew with him, being trained by Jones, you were going to be seeing some disgusting. Like as soon as he got him down, I knew those elbows were coming out, and he could move them. There's some rare characters that can move them that high up to get some leverage down there. And it's a long way from Nebraska covering those tractor fights you're talking about your friends covering. So it must be exciting, man, to be continuing to be witnessing these next legends come up, especially when these. I know you've been with them all, basically almost every single legend there is in MMA you've spoken to, you've done interviews with.
I appreciate that.
Do you still get do you ever get starstruck at all? That's kind of a question I have because when I'm doing this, it's not a persona, but it's like this is the job. I'm going to talk with them, and
Sure.
that's what it is. But there's sometimes where, I'm chatting and I'll look over and you can just feel the aura, like Dana White, for example, within
Yeah.
10 feet of them, you're like, you can just feel it around them. Habib, for example, Anderson Silva, anyone that kind of still does that for you, even though you're this, seasoned.
Yeah, seasoned. Good way to describe it. I like that. I'll go with seasoned. Yeah, you know what, dude? If you are not still getting a few butterflies when you're
Yeah.
around the caliber of athletes that we are, or before you go live in front of, 5,000 people in the arena and, across the spectrum on UFC Fight Pass, then I think you might need to reevaluate and maybe go get that 9 to 5 job. I still get it, and that's the desire, and that's why I continue to do it because just like you said, it is a lot of hours, it's a lot of
It is.
travel
It's a
away
ton.
from the family, but I still enjoy it thoroughly. So last week, as I was talking about Alex Pereira there, of course, Ed brings Alex over to do an interview, and it's me and Gilbert Melendez. And just ironically, Taylor, the Foxwoods Resort Casino, they always bring in some legends. The last time we were there, they brought in Ken Shamrock, and it was so awesome. We went to dinner and hung out and just went back through the old days, the good old days of the IFL and even the UFC. Well, they just happened to bring in Tito Ortiz.
That's right. I saw
So
that.
who just made news, and I love Tito. Tito is one of my favorite interviews. He was the guest that came on Inside MMA the most out of any of them. He's a great guy, number one. He's a fun dude, and he's a fantastic interview. But of course, he just made news, and I don't know, probably knowing him, I didn't ask it. He knew Alex was going to be there, and he's there, so why not create some news? He says that I would have beat Alex Pereira if we would have fought in my prime because my wrestling would just neutralize everything that he has. And so here he is, and Ed brings Alex over for the interview. And I was like to my producer, Jamie, I said, Jamie, you got to get a shot of Tito before you bring on Alex. And he's like, got it, done. So we come in, and there's Tito. And hey, the stars are out here. Foxwoods, the former UFC light heavyweight champion, Tito Ortiz, Hall of Famer. Great to see him. And we go from a former champion to the current. And here's Alex. And Alex is great. He's coming a long way with his interviews, but we have a translator. And so we go through talking about his sister because it was about her. It was about Alini that night. Get through that. And then I have to mention, I was like, hey, you just saw the video over there. Tito Ortiz is here. And I reminded him what he said. And I see the translator, Derek, I know him well, is just like shaking his head, laughing. And I said, so what is your reaction to Tito saying he could beat you in his prime? And Alex said, he said something along the lines of, I just don't think he wants that. And he's like, it's a good thing that we have this gap in our years. And that's it, gives this little grin. And it was awesome. And we get done. And Gil Melendez, as we're walking back over, is like, dude, I can't believe you asked him that. You're crazy. And I'm like, you know what? It's good for Alex to open up a little bit and people see a different side of him. Tito, of course, he doesn't care. He goes through it all. And so I don't know, man. Just quickly, I know I'm rambling, but you mentioned
No, it's good.
Okay, appreciate it. Dana White, for years on Inside MMA, we were not credentialed.
Yeah.
And there was a little rift between Mark Cuban, who owned HDNet in the day, and the show Inside MMA, which was his brainchild. He wanted a sports center for the world of MMA, not just the UFC, Strikeforce, Elite XC, WC, everything. Mm-hmm. And that kind of started the rift between Dana and Mark. But we weren't credentialed, and I'm covering the UFC, so I would have to go out and get creative in getting interviews. And I knew a lot of the fighters, so I'd interview them outside the arena. I'd go to their hotels. I'd meet them at their dinners, whatever they wanted to do, because they wanted to be. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They wanted to be on national TV. So it was a weird time, but Dana knew the value of this show, and he knew that his fighters could get paid for coming on with their gear on, and that's what it was all about. So finally I get credentialed, and it's Frankie Edgar and Benson Henderson fighting in Denver, my first UFC that I'm covering, and I get an interview with Dana. And I remember I was nervous as hell. I'm like, damn it. I've met him. I know him, but I've never got the one-on-one. And so he comes over and the fight ends. And, I the first question, thank him for coming on. I just asked him, that was a real back and forth battle between Henderson and Edgar. They gave it to Henderson. How did you have that fight? He's like, yeah, it was a real good fight. Great main event. How did you have it scored? And he put it right back on me. And I remember I'm like, oh God, okay, here we go. So I started thinking about it, and I went through it, and I had it the other way. I had it going the other way. And I get done, and he's just looking at me. I'm like, oh God, is he going to just walk away? And he's like, wow, that's interesting, because I had it going the other way too. And we start talking about it. And from that time on, we had this great relationship. But if you don't come prepared and you're interviewing the big boss, he will crush you. And you better be ready. And as well he should. If you're getting an interview with him, you better come in prepared, and you better be ready to support the product that he's putting out there. So one of my favorite stories is coming up through this world of MMA.
Gotta be prepared always, man. Always. And it was the exact same way, kind of deciphering my way into this game. Again, uncredentialed. When I heard this was in 24 when UFC came to Toronto with Duplessis taking on Strickland there, and Strickland won. So there was an announcement that they were doing UFC meet and greets, and it just so happened they're doing them at Boston Pizza. Well, I called Boston Pizza and I said, "Do you folks have anyone that knows anything about what's going to happen tomorrow?" And they said, "No, we're just doing this meet and greet." And I said, this location, because Dana White was coming down. I said, this location will be the center of the universe tomorrow."
Brilliant.
And they're like, they're like getting worried. They're like, "Well, should we call more staff?" I said, "Listen, I'll come in and I'll take care of all your guys' video and all the marketing promoting. Just get me right in
Nice.
there." They're like, "Oh, come on down." So I'm lucky enough, a good videographer friend of mine, he films with Bilal Muhammad as one of his main videographers, and travels with Habib doing his meet and greets across the nation. I called him up. I said, "Listen, dude, we got Dana White tomorrow, Boston Pizza. Can you make it happen?" He came down with his video camera and bing, bang, boom, we're in there. And all of a sudden, same feeling. And like you said, too, if you're not prepared, you're screwed. And you have to be like I said too, or like you said, pardon me. If you get the opportunity to be speaking with these folks, i.e., even this conversation, you have to be, or else you're disrespecting the fighters who put in the hours to make this sport happen, to make us have a career, to make people fans, and all of the above.
Yeah.
It's disgusting how much unseen hours are put in and how little coverage on the way up these guys get. You know, when I started this, my main goal was I look at college basketball players, college football players. These prospects on their way up should have just as much attention as they should. You know, you get guys going into McDonald's to get a milkshake and they get a magazine cover in college football. It should be the
Sure.
exact same way for the Shannon Clarks, for the Ailinis, for everyone. Those names should be up there on the way up, and I think we're getting there. I think we are getting there close.
I do too, Taylor. And great story. I love the hustle, man. You got to be able to do it. And that's where it all starts. I mean, if you would have asked me 20 plus years ago when I graduated from the University of Colorado and got a broadcast news journalism degree, if I'd be covering mixed martial arts full time and making a living out of it, I would have thought you were crazy. You know, I was covering the Avalanche, or up in your world back then, the Quebec Nordiques,
Yeah.
and you know, the Nuggets, doing some college football, and then when I got to HD Nets, they were doing boxing, and then Reed Harris from the WEC called Mark Cuban and it's like, you need to put MMA on the network. And nobody knew MMA at the station. My executive producer, one of the best in the business, Daryl Ewalt, he comes up to me as we're doing boxing. He says, "Hey, Ronnie, you know anything about cage fighting?" I'm like, "Oh, you mean the UFC?" He's like, "No, no, Ronnie, it's fights in a cage." I'm like, "Daryl, that's what the UFC is." He's like, "Okay, you're my guy." Uh, Oh, okay. Nobody knew anything about the sport. And back then, Cuban wanted HDNet to be an ESPN. He knew sports in high definition was going to blow up. And
Yeah.
so we did college football, NHL, Major League Soccer, boxing, and then soon the WEC. But that's where I started too, man. I was that back in the day, 2004, you know, Gilbert Melendez and me, still kid, they show a picture of us. He won my first event I worked was WE9, and it was along with the fight professor Stephen Quadros, Ryan Bennett, who was amazing, and we lost him way too early. Jeff Blatnick, who was Olympic gold medalist and responsible for the unified rules, lost him too early too. But you know, I'm interviewing Chris Lieben. I'm interviewing these guys that are just starting. In the next event, Gilbert Melendez wins the title while wearing like Hawaiian board shorts. And I'm in there with like a suit that's like this big and way too big for me. But that they keep showing that picture of me interviewing him. And that's really where it began. And in a farm town called Lemoore, California. And here we are now. The UFC's signing with Paramount, and billions and billions of dollars. And we just keep rolling, brother.
It's amazing. And Ron, I feel like I can talk with you for 4 hours about just everything here. I don't want to keep you too long. So I have a couple things here for you.
You got it.
Joe Williams and Irv Brown, are they still doing a show?
Oh my gosh, what in the world? The blast from the past, the Irv and Joe show. That's the tractor races you pulled up to. I did not take a job in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, so I could work with Irv and Joe. That is amazing. Deep dive, Taylor.
Yes, sir.
They were the OGs of Denver sports talk. Unfortunately, we lost the coach, Irv Brown, a few years
Hmm.
back. But Joe Williams, his son, Bert, and I grew up together. So we're still very close friends. Joe Williams is why I love combat sports. He used to get every pay per view, boxing pay per view back in the heyday, in the mid 80s and all the way through.
Oh,
So I saw
perfect.
all the Hagler, Hearns, Sugar Ray, Durant, all those guys to Tyson and everything. So he's a real key in getting me into this sport. But wow, where'd you come up with that one?
That's awesome, man. I just pulled it out of the air, man. Pulled it out of the hat.
Well
I,
done.
s- I
Well
see
done,
you've done
sir.
some ads. K Guard Chicago, K2 Nature's Lab. Do you still do those? Like, are you multi hustling right now on top of LFA?
You got to talk to my agent about that. There's a
I'll
few
leave it
videos
there.
out
We'll
there
leave it
that
there.
I
That's
really
good.
want to know. No, my man, I still do a lot of it.
That's
I
awesome.
still do some local shoots,
Yep,
and that's what's beautiful about the LFA. They let me do other things.
that's
I'm
good.
still doing calling some fights with Glory here and there,
Yep.
and I'll leave you with this. I thought I've done everything, but last Saturday we did the LFA in Foxwoods on Friday. Saturday, I called my first ever sumo tournament,
That's
and
what you were there for. Okay. I saw you at
it
the sumo. I
was
wasn't sure.
amazing.
Oh, dude.
It
Oh,
was fantastic, man. I had never been a part. I've seen it, but I've never seen it live. And Andrew Froyland, who is the director of USA Sumo, and Christian Printup, who runs the entertainment at Foxwoods. Christian and I go back to the WEC. He was there in Lemoore back in the day. And he's like, "Hey, Kruck, you ever call sumo?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Would you want to?" "Yes." "Let's go." And so I did it the next night, and it was a blast. It was a blast.
that's awesome. I had my commentary debut last Saturday, actually, for the record too. And I was thinking
For
of you while
who?
I was doing it with a pro amateur kickboxing tournament in Toronto. We
Heck
had some
yeah.
WMO titles on the line, about 18 fights. It was a
Okay.
grand old time, man. Did
I
did some
love it,
post-fight
dude.
interviews, but I made the mistake of hitting my friends. They had the dab pen there, and I went outside and the first post-fight interview I did in the ring was a little rough, but everything else was smooth after that. I go up to her,
Yeah.
I'm like, that I smoked, but that was too strong, man.
Yeah, you felt the uppercut come
I
through,
did.
huh?
I did,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
maybe post events we'll come back with that. But that's good for you, man. That's great. And we all start somewhere, man. We all
Exactly.
it's the journey, and that's what it's all about.
So we had a beautiful card with LFA 22 or 222 here. Kamzayev had that amazing KO. The prelims were disgusting.
Oh,
Um, and
so much so.
Garcia, by the way, I thought, you have this tough Eurasian coming in. You
Yeah.
have it disgusting. He's 5-0, looking to go 6-0, and boom, flatlined. That's how
Yeah.
stars are built.
Yeah, that card was awesome. I'm just kind of going back because they all blend in, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was Garcia. He needed that win bad.
yeah,
And then Kazimov, that kid is someone to keep an eye on too. He's gonna do great things. And of course, Pereira kind of stole the show and really did put on a show. I mean, she needed a win. It's been 2.5 years, so she came back and looked great. And now we roll into 223, our last
yeah.
event of the year, which I can't believe, but 20th World Championship title fight, Taylor. We got the welterweight, vacant welterweight strap on the line, and it should be a great matchup. You got New York's own Jonathan Piersma coming in. He's, kind of the kingpin in that region. And then Luis Francis Canelli, who has just dominated since he's been here with the LFA. 5 fights, 5 impressive knockouts, and all 5 of them coming in the very first round. So that's the main event. I think it's going to be well worth the price of admission, but stack card as usual.
Yeah, yeah, I have John on tomorrow. I'm excited to chat with him. I
Nice.
mean, it adds to the energy too when I'm watching a card and you've made that connection. You know how that is. You're watching with someone and it might be a fighter that you really hit it off with and you want
Oh
to see
yeah.
them succeed, but you have to remain neutral while you're talking, right? So those emotions you got to keep in, but
That's a great, I mean, that's the first thing you gotta do. That's journalism 101, and some people don't. It's funny, man. Melendez, when one of the scrap pack guys come in or someone from his gym, he's like, oh God, I know.
look at
Like he's
DC
even
whenever
more
he's calling, right? You could hear it in DC. Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
That's a great
Yeah.
example.
There was a weird one this past at LFA 222. You don't see it often where you called the tap out before the ref. You get up, he tapped. It's over.
Yep.
Don't worry about it. It's
Yep.
done.
God, every so often, man,
Yeah,
you just hope you can
yeah.
see it by now. But yeah, it was a great event. That crowd was rocking, sold out at Foxwoods, and we're expecting the same thing in Niagara Falls and the Seneca Niagara Resort and Casino, place we go all the time. Working with Alan Joban this week will be fun. Who we got to watch him. One time we were out there and I don't think it's going to be as cold. I think it was February and we took him to the falls and Louisiana guy. He
Yeah.
doesn't know what cold Northeast winters are like you guys know and what Niagara Falls knows. He couldn't speak for about 45 minutes. I had to get him, like, I just got him a hot toddy. I'm like, dude, just stop. Just come in here, straight up Manhattan whiskey, we'll get your back. But excited to call the fights with him. Amazing 24th event of the year. We're quitting a little bit earlier this year. Usually we'll do one in December, but there's a lot going on, and we're excited. We've gone back to back to back in November, beginning in Brazil. So it was Brazil to Foxwoods in Connecticut, and now to Niagara. So it's been a great year for us. 24 events, as I said, 30 athletes put into the UFC. My stat man, AJ, I got to give him some love. We've had, out of those 30 fighters to go into the UFC, we've had alumni headline 18 UFC events. So, I mean, they're coming in, they're getting it done. And as I said, 4 current former LFA athletes holding titles in the UFC right now. It's just amazing, really amazing numbers.
There isn't another promotion that's doing it like LFA, honestly, and that's why everyone should tune in this Friday. Doors at 5:30 if you're there. Prelims at 6:30 Eastern. Main card at 9 p.m. Go say hi to Ron Kruck if you're in the crowd
Please
when he's
do.
when he's off his mic there. Ron, I appreciate your time, man. I know how pressured it is with how much prep you got to do, the traveling, spending time with family, balancing all that. Big shout out to Carly for setting this up. Really appreciate her.
Yeah, she's the
Yeah,
best. Talk
yeah,
about a hustler.
yeah. Seriously.
Talk about a hustler. And you got to throw out her Kevin Carrier, her husband. He's
Yes,
on the
on the
main
card.
card.
I'm gonna be chatting with
That's
him too. I'm
that's going to be
excited.
awesome. But tough matchup with Kelton Sneeve, a dude that 4-1. He comes in and he brings it. I'm excited to see that matchup. But Carly's one of my favorite. Remember her name. She'll probably be replacing me pretty soon. So, but Taylor, thank you, brother. Anytime. And if you are, please, if you are at Niagara Falls in the Seneca Resort Casino, come say hi to Alan Joban. He's kind of a big deal, and me as well. We'd love to see you. If not, catch us on UFC Fight Pass. And again, thanks for the time, my man.
Yeah, of course, of course. My goal is to be at some LFA events in 26, so I'll definitely see you guys in person then. I'm looking
All
forward to it,
right,
man.
gonna
And
be a busy
I got,
year. Let's make it happen.
yeah, man. Yeah, you enjoy this time. Take your, enjoy your travels. Don't go nuts, and you have a great time, man. Appreciate your time,
Okay,
Ron. Really do.
thank you. Take care, brother.
Cheers, bro.
Okay.